Hey guys, so I'm in the shop again here. I just finished up these ceiling fans. I wanted to bring you guys along to show y'all what I'll be working on now. I'm gonna be fixing this skid steer trailer moving attachment, you know, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, this might be even hard to visualize, but this is a skid steer attachment with it laying like this. But you can see there, that's the back side of the skid steer plate. And this one here, I believe, is made by Titan Attachments. And you guys, if y'all have ever looked up any skid steer attachments, you'll definitely find them online all over the place. And they do well with advertising. And we have several attachments from Titan Attachments, if I'm not mistaken, and most of them have held up well. This one I have not been very happy with, so you know, I wouldn't recommend getting this particular skid steer trailer moving. You know, I'm not exactly sure what the real name of these is. That's just what I call them. But as you can see, this is just a piece of square tubing right here. The heaviest thing we lift is definitely the firewood processor, our Easton made 60C. It's got a good bit of tongue weight, and I mean, moving that thing, especially if you're going over some rough terrain or some edges of concrete or something, trying to push it up over, you know, which we definitely have out there, just kind of moving it around the yard, getting it in position and stuff. It can be rough on one of these, but our other one is it is solid right here, so you don't have quite the visibility that you have with this one, but it's not an issue at all. And it's just structurally a lot better right in this area. And it's not like it was an expensive one. I think it was honestly less expensive than this. And these things aren't very expensive. I mean, you know, 100, 150 bucks, 200 bucks, something like that is around what you can get these for, if I'm not mistaken, or at least back when we got them. But you can see we got weld breaking loose here, and I'm gonna go ahead and just weld that up while I'm at it. I've done some repair to this in the past. I'll flip it and show you, but I'm gonna go ahead and get a heavy piece of angle, and I'm gonna notch around this and come over the top of this and weld it, you know, all the way up around the angle to reinforce this. I'm just trying to get a little more life out of this thing. I like having two of these around the shop, and these are the only two I have. Is just this one and then that other one, and I do have one for our mini skid too, just for around job sites, moving our trailer around and stuff. We don't use it a whole lot, but anyways, I'll go ahead and flip this over one more time. Try not to mash my fingers. You can see that I've put some additional weld on this. This right here, you know, originally was square with this, you know, and now it's flexed out. You know, I'll try to hit this in a little bit. I don't know that it's got any real movement. I've actually tried to, while the ball was still hooked in here, tried to put force with the skid steer and try to bend that up, and it didn't. And I mean, it's not the end of the world that's bent. I'm okay with that. I just got to reinforce all this and just make sure that this, you know, it's about to just rip the steel right here, you know, right at the edge of my weld. You know, you can see it over here. It's ripping out right here. And so I'm gonna try to reinforce all this, make this thing last a good bit longer for us. Reinforce this here as well. And yeah, that's what I'm about to be working on. And first thing I'll do is get that piece of angle, try to get it cut how I need it to fit around this. And then I'll be, you know, I'm gonna try to hit this in. I'll do that first, try to hit this, see if I can get any of that gap to close slightly right there. Then I'll get that piece of angle, get it cut to fit, and then I'll be marking around that angle so that I can grind all the surfaces as clean as I can before I get some weld on it. And then I'll also just grind this and clean this up, clean the paint off of all that on this side as well as that side. Might hit a little bit of weld here. That's kind of breaking a little bit. Obviously this is where all the torque is on that, you know, whenever you're hooking into something. So I'll get it as good as we can. Not going to spend a ton of time on it, but I just wanted to bring you guys along and show you what I'm doing. So whenever I do a project like this, you know, I'm not like planning to do it or ordering steel and going to pick it up. I usually just come right over here and just see what I have on the shelf. So I've got a bunch of these drops of, I don't know, 3-inch angle or so. I've also got some 2-inch angle right here. And you know, I mean, here's a piece. You know, I just make whatever I have kind of work. It may not be ideal. Like this might be a little bit too big. This is a little bit too small. but I'll probably end up using the 3-inch angle. So I actually just pulled a piece over here, and my concern is that it's going to be too deep. That should work just fine. I'll be sitting it like this, notching this around, and that way that'll lay flat on that piece of tubing there. But I'll go ahead and try to get this bend out of this a little bit. All right, so that has helped close that gap up pretty good right there. I might even go ahead and just grind this, get a little bit of weld in there. That way it's underneath there. Might as well, that'll help reinforce everything as well. So I'll do that before I do anything else. I'll go ahead and clean this up with an angle grinder so I can get some good clean weld in that. And then I'll of course have to grind that weld flat, you know, pretty decent so that the angle will fit over it well. But I'll go ahead and get that done, and then we'll get it cleaned up and ready for that piece of angle. All right, so that's about how you want it to look. You know, those of y'all that aren't familiar with welding, and I'm no expert, no teacher by any means, but I've done a good bit of it, and you just want to have the surface as clean as you can. Of course, there's some rust down in there that's, you know, unpreventable. I mean, you know, you could spend forever if you wanted to try to get it just perfect, but this is good enough for what I'm trying to do for sure. And you just want to have the surface as clean as you can, free of paint and that kind of thing, so that you can get a good clean weld in there and get good penetration and, you know, a strong weld. So I'll go ahead and get my welder set up and get it over here, and we'll get that welded up, and then we'll, like I said, we'll get that piece of angle ready. And this is my welder. I don't think I've ever brought you guys to see what I'm welding with. So it's a Lincoln 260 MIG, and this thing's great. I've had it since we moved over to this property, and then you know, I just use the heck out of it. Just different little miscellaneous things. I swear I couldn't live without a welder once you have access to one. And I'm very thankful. My uncle, for years, he had a Miller MIG similar to this, and he let me use that thing for so many years. And you know, he's the one that taught me how to weld, and I actually learned how to welding up tree stands a long time ago. That's the first thing I ever welded, and ever since just been modifying or building whatever we need or at the time, and fixing whatever we need at the time, and you know, it'd just be hard to not have one now. You know, I can't imagine not having one. But you know, if I had to pay someone to do all the little welding projects that we do, we could just never do it. So very thankful to have this welder, and I'm glad to have had all the experience using my uncle's, that's for sure, over the years to get to the point where we can fix our own stuff and, you know, modify or repair whatever we need at the time. So this thing is super easy to use, super easy to set up. I am going to go ahead and need to grind a spot on there to ground onto that plate there. I love having this welding table. You know, if that were bare steel, I could just ground to the table, and it would work through the plate, you know, being that it's all steel. But this thing's got too much paint on it. I don't think I would get a good ground connection doing it that way. So I'll just scrape off some of the metal some of the paint down to the bare metal right here, and put my ground clamp right there. But all you got to do with this thing, I'll get it a little bit closer, but you just flip the switch on. The screen right there will come on, and all my weld settings are just the way that they were prior to when I turned it off. And I mean, it's ready to weld just right there. I mean, obviously I got to put my ground clamp on, but it's set to 1/4 inch. I've got my shielding gas is a 75-25 argon CO2 mix, and then I've got 030 wire, and you know, it just kind of auto does the speed and amps according to the thickness of the steel. You can adjust that if you want. But yeah, it's super user friendly, very easy machine to weld with. You know, once you get the hang of it and the feel for it, and then you just got to turn on your shielding gas right here, which this thing is just about empty. I've got another tank sitting right over there. I'm actually shocked the gauges read like almost just pretty much nothing, but it's still running some, still working a little bit, still putting my shielding gas out. So that's all you need. As long as it's working, keep running it. So I'll go ahead and show you what I mean by, you got to get good bare metal to get a good ground connection there. So just went ahead and cleaned that paint off, and now you always want to use the side where your wire's coming into your clamp. That's the side that is actually grounding. So ground it right there like that and be good to go, and then I'll get set up right here and get this weld taken care of. Alright guys, so that's what that's looking like. I'll clean this up a little bit, that way that angle fits over that nicely. I didn't want to get too heavy of a weld in there. That's why you saw me just kind of touching it, just kind of tacking it, along the way. And I did that because I didn't want it to bulge up and be too much of a weld, and also it's very thin. When you get those edges like that, it's very tough. You can easily burn through the steel just like that, just so fast. So I didn't want to put too much heat on it. But anyways, I'll get that kind of cleaned up, dressed up, so that my angle fits over it good, and then we'll get that angle cut. All right, so I got that looking how I think I need it. The angle should fit over that weld nicely. Now I just got to get this notched out so that it'll sit flat. But I want it to catch on this weld right here. So I'm going to notch it wide enough to catch right there on the side of that weld. And then again right here, it'll catch right there, and then we'll get all this welded up real nice. And I think that's going to reinforce everything for us once we get all this welded around the edges as well. I'm going to go ahead and mark it where I think I need to, probably right in this area, right in this area. And then as far as to the side goes, it's going to need to be right about there. And if I take that notch out right there, that should then fit over this pretty well. Might have to do a little tweaking to it, but I think that'll be a good start. We'll get that taken care of. May have just heard that fan turn off. That's one thing I do like about this welder, is it's just got that automatic fan, so it cools the machine automatically as long as you leave it plugged in or on. You don't have to worry about, did I leave it on long enough to cool the machine down, because that's the life of one of these welders is if you let them cool down after you use them for a little bit, that definitely helps. Got this thing clamped up in my vise, and now we'll just get an angle grinder with a cutting wheel, and we'll get this thing cut off. One thing I will say, there's things that I like from Harbor Freight and things that I don't like, but these right here are the best cutting wheel money can buy, and they're from Harbor Freight. And most cutting wheels like this, they don't last if you bind them up at all. Just a little bit of a little bit of binding on that wheel, and it just shreds the thing. These things right here are super durable, and a good price too, like most things at Harbor Freight. I will say that the bandsaw blades that are the same brand as this, the Hercules brand, they are not worth having, but these right here are amazing. Now if I had my bandsaw, I don't have a blade for it, but I would make both of these cuts with it, but I just don't have a blade for it right now. So All right, let's see if this thing fits. Oh yeah, maybe that's gonna work. Yep, that should work good. I'll get all this cleaned up. I'm gonna mark where it needs to be. Yeah, that should help reinforce everything pretty well. So right there where those lines are, that's where I'm gonna clean up with the sanding disc. I'm also gonna grind, right in here, get all this paint cleaned up, as well as right here, and then on that back edge on both spots there. And we'll get some good solid welds around this thing, and this area here should be good. And then all we got to do is just catch these spots here, and we'll be ready to use this thing. All right, so that should work right there. I got everything cleaned up. You see how that is right there. You want that bare metal, you want to get rid of all the paint. This vertical edge is a little bit more difficult to see, but same thing there. This edge is a little bit harder to get to with an angle grinder, but that should be good enough for what I'm doing. Got this cleaned up, got it cleaned up around there. I might go ahead and do a little bit more right in this corner so that I can get a little weld into that where it's cracked. And then you can't even see it. Let's see if I can get you to see that. Yeah, I got it cleaned up right there and cleaned up right there as well. So we should be able to get some good weld. I'm gonna go ahead and take this off, get a little bit right in that area, and then we'll get to welding. All right, so I cleaned that little bit up, and we are ready to weld now. So always when I'm welding, I want to always get it tacked in a few spots, just kind of here, over there, so that nothing warps and twists. You don't want to just go down one, and put one bead here, and then as metal heats and cools, it kind of does funny things, so it'll kind of twist on you. So you always want to just tack it here, tack it there, tack it here, tack it there. That's one thing that is extremely crucial to getting something on straight and how you want it. So alright, now that I have it tacked in 4 areas, it's not going anywhere, so I'm going to go ahead and put solid welds around the whole thing. So whenever you have to fill a big gap like that, you just kind of build it up, but you got to wait for it to cool a little bit. So that's why you hear it just, I'm just kind of doing a little bit at a time, letting the weld build up, and then once it's high enough, then I'll be able to do a pass over that and get good, a good solid weld. Give you a closer look, see how it's looking. So this is what I'm doing. I'm just building up the weld to where it's all going to be a flush, solid piece there, and that's going to should be super strong. And you can see kind of how it looks here. A little bit closer look. And that I might try to unbend that before I weld it, flip it over while it's good and hot, and try to unbend that. And then this side's looking good, so just got to do that. Then I'll probably flip it over, try to hit that up, and then I got to get a little weld on the bottom side, and then this project will be pretty much wrapped up. So I actually got a lot of the bend out of that, so it's a lot tighter right there, and that'll give me a much better weld right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that welded, then I'll spin it around and we'll get the bottom side. All right, so this side is pretty much wrapped up now. I'll go ahead and spin it around, we'll get that underside, and then we'll start working on these edges. right, so I got all that wrapped up now, and that should help tremendously right in this area. And then I'll go ahead and just get these cleaned up and get some weld on that as well. So an area like that is always difficult to get where you really need to get, like down in that, down real close in there is where you'd ideally want to clean. But I'll just do the best I can and make as good of a pass around it as we can. It's certainly better than, it'll be a lot better than nothing, but you know, ideally you want to clean all the way, all that rust out of there and all that paint out of there. But you know, for what I'm doing, you know, you could run a cutting wheel under it and kind of get a little better if you wanted to, but for what we're doing here, it'll be just fine. I'm going to go ahead and just put some weld on it. It'll certainly be better than the way it is. So alright guys, well that's going to pretty much wrap up the welding. Now the next step, and I just kind of like to just, put a beefy weld right there at the end. This one over here doesn't look as good because it's had a little bit too much paint and stuff in it, but that'll work just fine. I'm going to go ahead and just scrape this up. What I do is I just get a wire brush like this and just kind of clean up around the welds just like this before I paint it. So I am going to go ahead and just paint this black while I'm at it. Everything's still pretty hot right now, but honestly I feel like that helps the paint cure good, cures it fast, and seems like it makes it stick real well. So using this paint right here, just something I had on the shelf. I don't want to get too much paint on my welding table. I like it to be bare steel if I can, so elevate it a little bit. All right guys, well here's the finished product. I think it's gonna do just fine for us, and that repair should hold up for a long time. Like I said, I think it's built out of just a weak piece of tubing there, and you know, that should really be something with a really heavy wall on it, if you're gonna build it out of tubing like that. I mean, our other one has gussets coming back and just reinforcing it into a piece of plate steel like this. I think that's a much better design. Granted, they did want to have this cut out here and that kind of thing, so definitely makes it a lighter duty attachment. But I think with that added support there, that's going to help tremendously. So that's pretty much going to wrap this one up, guys, I think. And appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.